Hey everyone, it's Dr. Ramani. Welcome back to this YouTube channel on narcissism. This is an interesting video, and it's a complicated one on step-grandchildren. This was a specific question that came my way, and it was an interesting question, but I think it affects more people than I'd originally suspected. And as I did a deeper dive, I saw that was the case. And so thank you for those of you who sent this in. So let's say you got into a relationship with a narcissistic person. I don't know, perhaps it was someone older than you, or even a relationship you got into later in life. The person, the narcissistic person you got into a relationship with, had their own children. And maybe you even had your own coming into the relationship. Either way, you watched their children grow up and maybe even helped to raise them. Then your partner's children get older and they have their own children. So now you have step grandchildren. And you may be deeply connected to these children, having known them in some cases since they were born, or you may have come into the relationship with the person when the grandchildren already existed, but still really cherish these little people. But the narcissism part of the relationship, grandchildren or no grandchildren, becomes too much. Maybe you don't have biological children together, so the split could be theoretically easier, as there may actually be no need for ongoing contact. But those grandchildren that you love, what do you do about that? And that's where this person's question came in, and multiple persons, I should say, question came in. This is not beyond the pale. In intimate relationships in particular, you meet someone and they come into that relationship with their own families, right? Their own siblings, their own parents, and potentially, like I said, their own children, and perhaps ultimately grandchildren. And your love for some of these other people in the narcissistic person's life is genuine, but the damage of the narcissistic relationship is quite real and something that you would like to distance from. And those in-laws may have become friends and supports, and in some cases may really even see things clearly and have desperately hoped that you could have made a horse race of it, if for no other reason, maybe to keep the narcissist out of their hair. But your partner's adult children may have also grown close to you, and their grandchildren, like I said, may feel like your own. So what do you do? Now, I know that lots of people out there, when they can, embrace no contact, love no contact, and may even need no contact. But it is a challenging paradigm when there are other people involved. It can be difficult to go no contact with one person within a system, for example, with an ex-partner, but still maintain ties with other people like their extended family. Some people may choose no contact over everything else just to feel safe or to be completely free of the toxic patterns, while others may want to find more of a middle path. But some people get so focused on the no contact that they aren't able to make room for that middle path. Now, this is tricky. Don't let the seeming magic of no contact steer you away from the possibilities that can come from trying to navigate, like I said, a middle path that may allow you to keep those grandchildren in your life. But there are different steps and facets to this process. Step one is to assess your situation. Will contact with those grandchildren make it so that you have to keep hearing about the ex in a way that will hold you back psychologically? Are you able to set a boundary with the grandchildren's parents to say, hey, I want to see the children, but could you not tell me about your parent, or ask not to be invited to events where the ex will be? Ultimately, you're balancing your own psychological health and needs with wanting to keep your step grandchildren in your life. And this may be more complicated than it sounds. So the sort of step two in all of this is to make sure you give yourself enough time to heal, or at least to get closer to indifference. The more indifferent you become to the ex, the easier it will be to walk this middle path, so you can see your step grandchildren. So even then, if the ex is mentioned or even shows up, and you'll be okay. And to ask yourself if you're ready, if the ex shows up, for example, with a new partner in tow. And we know that narcissistic people not only move into new relationships very quickly, they're notoriously punitive and unempathic when it comes to showing off their new partners and feel like they have the right to move on and nobody should judge them, right? They are spoiled children. So again, assess how it may feel to have them show up with a new partner to your step grandchild's birthday party. Step 3 is to also reflect on how much we get so lost with setting a permanent boundary with a toxic ex that we may lose sight of what else we lose. It goes back to that no contact issue. And that's sort of the equivalent of cutting off our nose to spite our face. In some cases, I absolutely agree, no contact is the best and cleanest path forward. However, we also have to reflect on the long game of trying to be the problem is if when we're trying to be so resolute in cutting the narcissistic person out, do we lose out on some of the gifts that the narcissist might have been the gateway to, most pointedly to the people who matter to us? It is essential that you put the time into healing, but also we have to be mindful that we do not let them hurt us twice. The hurt of the narcissistic abuse, and then going through the hurt of the people we lose when we feel the need to cut everyone away. Narcissistic people do not value human relationships the way other people do. Human relationships are very transactional for narcissistic individuals, something we call instrumental, a means to an end. So they may try and manipulate the family system to keep those grandchildren, those step grandchildren, away from you. I'm aware of that, and that can be a tragic consequence. Sadly, in order to survive these relationships, sometimes you need to become one hell of an actor and feign your own indifference about the things that matter to you, like in this case, the step grandchildren. If they sense they can't hurt you by weaponizing those children, they may move on to something else. For them, it's all about power and dominance and control, not support. In step 4, you got to keep it real. When it comes down to it, sometimes the adult children of the narcissist may still choose them. Some sort of odd loyalty or family loyalty. And even though they saw your pain and really loved you, they may still be willing to make that difficult choice. There will be so much grief at that point and a process of healing around that. Their adult children may be caught in their own trauma bonds. And this may mean that you lose access to that step grandchild and you will have no real recourse. As I said, we lose so much in these relationships. Don't lose something that matters if you can avoid it. Obviously, every story that involves these step grandchildren is different here. And obviously, if the parents of the grandchildren are choosing sides and they don't choose your side, you may be sunk. But if there is an opening and a healthy way to find that middle ground, even if it may mean hearing BS or even hearing manipulative stuff from the ex's children, for example, hearing that, oh, he misses you, recognize that the narcissistic person won't change, but you can still enjoy the slices and pieces of life that matter, like your step grandchildren. Every story is different. Only you know whether the fight is worth it or whether it makes more sense for you to go simply no contact. Thanks for sending that question in.